Hello, I'm Joshua Farnsworth and welcome to my traditional woodworking school. In the previous video, one of our instructors, Bill Anderson, shared a tutorial on how to refurbish wooden rabbet planes. And in this video, Bill's going to go a step further and show you how to refurbish metal rabbet planes. So sit back and enjoy this, and I hope you come and take a class from Bill or from many of our instructors here at the Wood and Shop Traditional Woodworking School. Thank you.
I'm going to show you the process of working on rehabbing a metal rabbet plane. The wooden rabbet planes we've worked up so far all basically have skewed planes, and that's skewed irons, and that's going to be sort of the standard skewed irons. These planes, however, the metal rabbet planes, the Stanley 180 series, the 190 series, they all have square irons, and other metal rabbet type planes that we'll be discussing later on, the Stanley 78 and so on and so forth, plow planes, they all have square irons. So I wanted to just show you a little bit of the process about getting the sole of this plane flat, and then we'll do a little work on the iron as well to just show you some of the nuances of sharpening a square across the iron, which will apply to, as I mentioned, to many other planes that we're going to be working with. One thing I have done, and you can see this, is I've left the iron in the plane, but it pulled back. When the cap iron is tightened down, puts stress on the plane, the only thing that holds the front to the back is this small isthmus of metal right here. So there can be some strain there, and that can change the straightness of this sole here. So that's more of an issue in wooden planes when you're flattening a wooden plane, but it's good to be aware of the potential for that for metal planes. So I've left the iron in there. We're going to work on a sanding board here. It's got some very coarse 60 grit metalworking sandpaper glued to a very flat surface, in this case MDF, but melamine would work well as well. You could do this on a belt sander, but you could easily round over the edges of the plane and damage it beyond use. So I would say take your time and use a board like this. Glue the sandpaper down flat on here. I used double stick tape to get that on here and made sure it was all the way across so I get an even flat surface. And basically, we're just going to pretend as though I'm planing this surface with this plane, although the iron, as I said, is set back. So I'm going to work a few strokes this way, and then I'm going to turn the plane around and do the same thing so I can normalize out any bias that I might put on this flattening process. So you can see what's happening here. Here's the flat part, and over here the plane appears to be out of flat considerably. One part is undercut, so to speak. That could be the way I was holding the plane, although I tried to work both directions of the plane, but it appears to be pretty flat here. So the process here would be just to continue on until you got three parts of this sole shiny like this. Somewhere around the nose, right at the mouth here, the leading edge of the mouth, and somewhere in the back. In other words, 3 points of attachment make a straight plane, so to speak, a plane, a surface, and a plane for this plane here. So that's the goal there, is to work back and forth until we've got this smoothed out. And I'm just going to continue doing this and see what happens. I'm going to try holding it flat this way for a while and see if I put some inadvertent bias in there or whatever. But this process is just a lot of elbow grease, and it continues on until you get it shiny right here, somewhere up here, and somewhere back here. You can see that I'm just slowly starting to work out this area here. And what you'll be needing to do here is to continue doing this sort of work, applying elbow grease, working on the sanding until you get these areas here, 3 areas flat on this sole, until that's accomplished. And right now we're not quite at that point, so you'll need to continue on this. At the same time, we can flatten this face here. This is not a shoulder plane, so it doesn't have to be perfectly flat here, but we can clean this up. And you can see where the high and low spots are here. And I would continue on until I got a nice smooth surface along this edge here, which is the functional corner of this plane, and until I was happy with that. We do have a fair amount of pitting and rust right here. I'm not going to try and get that out. It's only important that we have 3 areas that are flat on this plane, and especially right in front of the mouth. So that's the process here to continue on with this. Work on this until it's flat to your satisfaction. We will do a little work here with the iron. You see that the iron is square. I mentioned that before. We're going to do a little short demo on squaring up this iron, recutting the bevel, and flattening and honing it and getting it into shape. And that's the same process that we're going to use on many of the other planes that we're going to be talking about throughout this video. I've taken the iron, I've lapped the face of it here using the sanding board that I mentioned before. And now it's just necessary to square up this iron. And as opposed to the skew irons, we can square this up just using a square. We don't need to mark the iron off of the sole of the plane since it is square. And the other difference is we don't need to grind relief angles here on each side of the long edges here. So we're just going to square this up and get that the goal here is to get a sharp corner at each corner here and have the iron as square as possible back and forth like that. So at that point, when this is square, we're going to start working on the bevel. So we're going to change the bevel angle here from square onto the stone to something approximating 25 to 30 degrees. And we'll see what we get. We'll give it a little pass right here. And we'll take a look at what we've got. And you can see that we've got a shiny bevel here. It's still a little bit square right there on the edge. We want to continue grinding this bevel down until the edge is just shy of disappearing. And then we'll take it to the honing stones and we'll hone it on coarse and fine stones. In other words, everything that we do from this point on is exactly like with the skewed iron, except we have a square iron here. So we'll be honing along the length of the stone and using a coarse oil stone, then fine oil stone, etc., etc. The only real differences are we square off of a square and we don't have any relief angles back here. Other than that, this iron is going to be very much like many of the other irons that we're going to talk about later on plow planes, the combination planes, and etc., etc.
If you're interested in learning traditional woodworking, come take a class at our school in Earlysville, Virginia. You can also visit our website at woodandshop.com, where you'll find a bunch of free woodworking lessons, workshop tours, and our very popular tool buying guides. And make sure you subscribe to our free newsletter to get our latest articles and videos. Enjoy!